me start. Let me start our recording. Welcome to Get Her Hired's first ever Zoom webinar. So if you haven't noticed that this is our first ever Zoom webinar, now you have because we're trying this new format. We believe it's going to be more accessible for people. And we're able to record it, which is really nice so that we can have it for later. Sometimes the LinkedIn Lives, depending on the platform we use, we can't record them. And so we wanted to create this opportunity to not only, do this today, but in the future, create a record of these conversations so that people can use them because we're on a mission to help 10,000 really great women, thems, and cool men land their next boss roles. And however we can do that by sharing information, by doing these kinds of Q&As and webinars, we want to do it. So welcome in. In the chat, if you don't mind saying where you're calling in from, I can see we've got a few people from across the globe, and we're expecting up to 30 people today, which is wonderful and exciting. So as they join in, you might meet some more people. My name is Kate Wade, and I'm the founder and leader of Get Her Hired. And as I mentioned before, we're on a mission to help really great people land their best next boss roles. And we do that by writing scroll stopping resumes, by repositioning LinkedIn profiles so you actually get found in the LinkedIn search engine, and doing all sorts of things to help people get over their fear, focus on facts, and get out there and apply and interview for those jobs that they're really destined to be in and that they're already probably overqualified for. So, welcome to the party. I've got with me my colleague Lourdes Hernandez Dayton. Lourdes, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, yeah. I work with Kate at Get Her Hired. I also help with writing resumes, and I'm a newer member of the team. So I'm happy to be joining Kate on this journey and getting to meet all of these wonderful people who want to learn more about how to get noticed, how to get those
Oh,
jobs they deserve.
yeah. Thanks, Lourdes. And she just underrepresented herself. Lourdes, is it okay if we take this as a teaching moment for
Oh,
everybody?
absolutely, yes.
This is how we just do. We don't have time to wait. We just got to take care of this right now. Lourdes is a freaking badass, okay? She is a technical writer, project lead. She's been in med device. She worked at Medtronic for many, many years, and she knows what she's talking about. So if anyone out there is in med device, is technical, is sciencey, Lourdes is a great resource, and can really help develop those bullet points and those talking points for you because she knows that conversation very, very well. Is that okay, Lourdes?
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you for repositioning my bullets.
Keep repositioning them. They're going to land. And this is something for all of us here. Welcome in. I see Rafaela just joined in, and I can see Mary's here and Candace. Anjali, welcome in. I hope I said your name correctly. But welcome in. And if you want to, oh, Yelena is here. If you want to say hi in the chat, please do. And we'll be taking your questions. So if you want to add questions in, you can, and we'll be monitoring that as we go. So today, what we wanted to talk about is it's 2025. You're a new person. Does your resume like speak to who you are right now? And sometimes, sometimes they don't. I've been working with a client this morning, a call before this, who's been at her company for over 10 years. And she's like not documented anything she's done. And I don't know if that's familiar to any of you. Like you've been at the company 10 years and all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where, oh my goodness, I have to update my materials and I don't know how. I don't know where to start. And that happens to a lot of good people, especially in this, I'm just going to say it, this shitty economy where globally we're having this kind of whiplash on the marketplace. whiplash on jobs. Like in the United States, we have all these federal agencies closing. We have then an attack on diversity and equity and inclusion. And good people are losing their jobs. And I'm just going to call it here at Get Her Hired. We call that shitty. We don't agree with this, and that's why many good people are in a place where they're having to find a new role after many years. And oh my gosh, Candace, it's snowing in Detroit. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It happens here in Minnesota too, but not today. Not today. Oh, Rafaela is here from Paris. Welcome in, Rafaela. Yeah, okay. So we're talking about what do you do now that it's 2025? How do you update your materials? And we've got a few key ways we're going to do that, but what I want you to know is when you walk away from this webinar today, we're going to have you do a few things. One, I want you to know what you're focusing on for the next 12 weeks. Okay, so you're going to focus on one singular job for the next 12 weeks. I want you to walk away from this. And maybe Lourdes, can you type this up in the chat so that everyone can see this as I do this? Is that okay? Thanks,
Yep.
Lourdes. It's good to have a wing woman. So define what is your one goal for your job search in the next 12 weeks? Because, a 3-month period coming into the summer, like where do you want to be within those 12 weeks? So figuring that piece out. I also want you to start pulling together a single source of truth document for yourself. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but let me just frame it up right here. It's going to be your resume and whatever you got going on your LinkedIn profile and any continuing education, any awards, patents, publications, just like throw this all together into one long document and put a single source of truth together for yourself. The next thing I want you to do after you walk away from here today is write down what you want to be known for. Because a lot of the times we find that our clients might allow the responsibilities of their jobs to define what they are known for. And that may or may not be true, especially for people who are pivoting, people who want to advance and get more responsibility. You may want to be known for more specific things or more elevated things than the bullets of your responsibilities in your job might indicate. So, those three things again were that you're going to be looking at what is your one goal for the next 12 weeks. Thank you, Lourdes. Putting together your single source of truth document and writing down what you want to be known for proactively. So those are some key takeaways I want you that we'll work toward today as we're chatting. And if you've got any questions right away, you can definitely put that into the Q&A. And I see Yelena has already sent in a note from the Netherlands. It's a glorious day here. And we don't let the politics defeat us here over at Get Her Hired. So we keep marching forward. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what your resume is like right now. And I'll tell you this, like when we first start working with a client, they will send us over their document. And Lourdes, would you agree, like 9 times out of 10, it's a cool historical like archive?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What do we call that? The Career Chronicle or something
Yeah,
like
the
that?
Career Chronicles.
And so it's backward looking, right? And we need that chronological history for our work because people need to see and validate where we've been. But that's only half the story. And we will not even begin to touch or work on a client's materials until we know where they're going. So, a lot of the time, when people are talking about AI, when people are talking about updating their resume for a particular job that they've seen on the market, they go back and back and back again and rewrite history. And the history is great, but the thing that's missing there is it may not be positioned toward what you want in the future. Okay. And so when we get a resume that's like a bland historical summary, we've got to really turn that around. We do a lot of work then to understand, okay, you've been a marketing manager. Now you want to be a marketing VP or marketing director, and you want to go into an agency rather than an in-house role. This is just a for example, right? Like, so if you want to go there, we've got to make sure that your materials in the past point in the direction that, oh, yeah, I can go there. That's exactly that's and the person reading it can easily see, oh, she's done this before. Of course she can be the leader of this team and not just the manager of this team. So um, what we like to say is that your resume needs to sell where you're going. It needs to sound like you and it needs to sell where you're going. Okay. And if your materials don't align with where you're going in the future, you're going to be one in a billion. There are a billion people on LinkedIn. You're going to be one in a billion if you're not really positioning yourself for that future role. It's going to be hard to differentiate you from anyone else out there. And so, what we want our clients to do is ensure that your materials sound like you, align with your goals so that hiring managers can see your potential and not just your history. So when your resume reflects who you are in your future direction, it becomes a part of the momentum for your search and not just a maintenance document. Okay. So how do you do that? Let's briefly step into how do I do that? Lourdes, what's one of the first things, and I'm just gonna like we've been talking about this a lot, like um, when we're looking at where a client wants to go in the future, what's one of the first things that we start doing?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot. Um,
You know it. Starts with a C.
yep, putting me on the spot. Um, I don't have the C word. I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
competencies. We design from the competencies. Yeah. Go ahead, Lourdes. Explain a little bit more about what that's like. Sorry, Lourdes, I totally put you on the spot. This is obviously our first one where we're hamming and egging it
Yeah,
here.
no, we start looking at the competencies required for where you're trying to go. What are some of those things that you will need in your next role? But then also looking at what have you already done? Where do you shine? What are those competencies that are strong, so that we can match up, and really highlight what you've done, what you're good at, what those good competencies are, and make sure that they're the competencies that are relevant to where you're going, not just like, hey, you're really good at this thing that was great for your old job, but may not be as useful for your future position.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lourdes. And thanks for your flexibility. I'm really throwing things at you today. But
I
this
may
is
not
what
have
we
had
do at
enough
Get Her Hired.
coffee.
Go get some coffee. I'm all energized today. Yeah, so like what Lourdes just shared there, we will reverse engineer the writing that we do for the future. And so for those of you without English as your first language, mad respect to you all for being here and joining in on this conversation today. Um, and what that means is your skills and your strengths. So a competency, the way I look at it, there might be another definition of it, but this is how I look at it. It's a combination of the skills you've learned aligned with your special abilities that you just come innately with, and those are your strengths. So, skills are things you've learned to do, strengths are things that you're innately great at, and a competency kind of combines both of those things together. So, for example, you might have an executive leadership competency. You might have a financial acumen competency, and it will combine the skill you've learned at overseeing financial budgets, overseeing P&Ls, that type of thing, as well as the innate strength you have with that. So that's what we're talking about when we're looking at the competencies. And so if you can go out and we would recommend just trying ChatGPT. And if you haven't done that yet, just go ahead and go out to OpenAI and try a ChatGPT thread. Let people know, excuse me, that's not what I meant to say. Put into ChatGPT the kinds of jobs you're looking for and ask it to name for you the competencies that would be needed for those. Okay, very simple. And then you're going to see what is it that you should be emphasizing. So what do you want to be known for, right? And just see, do you agree with those or not? Do you want to be known for, let's see, something that sometimes people want to be known for, but I question them on is execution. Okay. So some people might be really, really good at getting shit done. But if you want a leadership role, do we want to really emphasize that? And so that might be something that we kind of simmer down and make um, a little bit more subtle, even though it's a competency that you might look at for your next role. But if you want to be a leader, execution should probably not be like really high on the list of the competencies that you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, so that's a place to do it. Go out to ChatGPT, OpenAI. You can try Claude AI, Gemini AI, Perplexity AI, any of those kinds of tools. Ask them for the competencies and then just see how you feel and how you might want to design from or toward that. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about today is your confidence. So, this is another thing. So, when we begin talking with a client, this happened just this morning with a client. She shared with me that, yeah, she's really interested in a role she just saw online. But then she got really nervous and started like sweating when she thought about applying to it because she thought, oh my God, I don't fit all of the bullet points that it says it needs in the list of bullet points, right? The requirements. Um, I automatically call bullshit on this immediately when a client says they're not qualified because, and I'll just, again, you all know my political stance just by the name of the company here, get her hired, and our mission. But I'll tell you this, I think there's a lot of mediocre people out there doing lots of things they're not qualified to do, and yet they're doing them. And I'm not here to say that that's a great way for us to be leading and living our lives with integrity. However, borrow just like an ounce of that swagger and confidence, okay? Borrow just an ounce of it because you probably are more qualified than you believe you are for that next role. So when you get kind of nervous and start sweating, thinking about applying for that job that, oh my God, I don't need 100% of these bullet points. Listen, Get Her Hired is going to tell you, so what? Who cares? Do it anyway. And let's make sure that it's even a job you want, right? Like, so there is that. Is it a job you want? Sometimes my clients will then say to me, well, but I don't want to seem like I'm bragging. I don't want to seem like I'm boasting or taking credit for things I haven't done, right? So they've got this humility that I'm just going to name it, it holds them back. The humility that holds them back because what's happening for those clients that I see, they're applying an emotional layer to something that is simply a fact basis, right? So I said earlier, I want you to come away with a single source of truth from this, right? And so what we at Get Her Hired talk about is let's get all the facts together. Let's just get them into one messy pile of information, right? And let's look at all the facts. Because when we look at the facts, they're going to tell a story. Now, you might emotionally feel a certain way about it, but if the fact is that you've supported a $41 billion business line, then that's a fact. That's not a boast. That's not a brag. It's a fact. If you have managed 10 departments, if you have overseen, collections that have supported 30,000 employees, if you have, been looking at sales pipelines that are $3 billion in size, those are facts. Now, someone might have an opinion about how you've done them. You might have your own opinion about how you contributed, but it's a fact. And so that's where we say, let's bring the facts out. So when you're feeling not confident, when you're like sweating, bring the facts together. Okay. So we want you to bring the fact basis together and look at it from that standpoint. So the two things we've talked about so far are making sure that the document is not just historical, that it's looking toward the future. The second thing we've talked about is really bringing in that fact basis. Okay. And then once we know that fact basis, once we know where we're also going, we can get really clear on those things that we want to talk about that help us stand out. Okay. So if it's been a minute since you've been looking for a job, if it's been a while since, or if you're looking to pivot, like you're in a place that feels very toxic right now. I just had a messaging conversation with someone who's in an incredibly toxic environment. And for their mental and physical health, they need to get out of there, right? Let's start looking at where do you want to go in the next 12 weeks? Like pick that point. Look at the competencies, pull the facts together. Look at where do you really want to go? And then redesign from, the past, how you talk about it. And it's not like, okay, I don't know if anyone remembers George Santos, senator, lied all over his resume, said went he went to Harvard and like had worked at Goldman Sachs and like all this stuff. Okay, we're not talking about that. We do not make up data. We do not make up facts, but you can reposition the facts to say this was an example of how I'm really great at this skill or this, how I use this strength. Okay, your competency. But we're not going to make up that you worked at Goldman Sachs and went to Harvard. Okay, that's not what I'm saying here. So, but you can redesign how you talk about the bullet points. Okay, and then the third thing I want to talk about before we open up for Q&A is really that this document, the point of your resume. Let's talk about that for a minute. The point of the resume um, is to get you conversations and interviews. The point of your resume is not to land you a job, so it's not going to get you a job offer. You still have to show up and go through an interview, right? And you have to present yourself well. And so your resume has to allow you the opportunity to have that conversation. Okay. So if the resume is a list of historical check boxes and it's full of boring keywords that make you sound like a billion other people on LinkedIn, and if it's unclear what kind of role you want, you're going to be skipped over. You're not going to get that interview. And so this is where I just want to mention that the job market is competitive, it's noisy. You don't need a resume that's just done. You need one that works for exactly what you're looking for. And I'm not saying that from the perspective of there's just this one job I want to have at this one company, but like your title area and adjacent titles, your industry area and adjacent industries. Okay. So it really has to be designed for that. It can't look like just any old resume because you need to tell that compelling story that makes the reader say, let's let's bring Mary in for that interview. Oh my God, did you read this about Yelena? We need Yelena in here now. Hey, Lourdes, can you go and get Candace set up for an interview? We want to have her in here. So that's what the job of the resume is to do. And so if, thinking through all those things, where we are in 2025 with the resume, yeah, there's lots of like picky little detaily things we could talk about, but I find that the information and advice that's lacking out there in the field is not about these picky little things. It's about the bigger picture. Where are you going? What do you want to be known for? What's the fact basis behind your career? And how are you then presenting it in a compelling way that makes you stand out from those billion other people on LinkedIn? Okay. So that's where we are here today in the webinar. And I want to open the floor. If people have questions, they can go down into the Q&A and enter a question. We can also have you come on and talk if you want to talk. So I'm just going to open up the allow to talk buttons here. So if you want to jump in and ask a question, you can unmute yourself and ask a question, and or type in a question in the Q&A box. So let's see, do we have a hand up? Anybody? I'm just trying to see. This is our first time doing this, so we're trying to um, learn how this platform works too. So if you've got a question, come on out.
Looks like Mary might have a question. Maybe.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hi, Mary. Oh, yeah. It's a little hard to hear you. Let me pull my volume up. Uh, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
I'm going to type it in, but looks like my microphone is open, so I'll just ask.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Now, my question is how how to get around when the job opening is asking for experience in a specific industry. So in my case,
Okay.
my background is as an information professional and doing competitive intelligence research, and so there's lots of people that are hiring for competitive intelligence, but almost all of them want you to actually have experience in their particular industry, and right, so far right now I'm not seeing anything that exactly matches up with the types of companies that I've worked for in the past. So I think I could still, in my mind and opinion, I could still do their job. I can just research anything, but it's hard to get
Right.
past that, you know, requirement or preferred requirement of having that background
Okay.
in that industry.
Fantastic question. Thank you, Mary. And thanks for bravely coming out here and being our first question. Appreciate you and recognize you. Yeah. Um, I would say that this comes up a lot. And let me ask you this, Mary. Have you applied for those roles or have you not applied because you felt like you didn't fit the industry?
I have applied for
Have
some of
applied.
them, and a couple of them I've already gotten a rejection, and just saying it's the typical going with another candidate that more closely matches whatever. Um, so I guess I don't know for sure that that was the
Yeah.
the part that got me knocked out, but it probably didn't hurt or did hurt
Yeah.
initially.
Okay. So what I would do, I'm just gonna put in here, I'm going into Chat GPT right now. Because um I'll show you. Oh, I wonder if I can share my screen while we're doing this. I think I can. Okay, so let's do this. Um, so Mary, tell me this. Do you have market and industry research? Are those skills you have?
Yes, in a sense. Sometimes market research is more focused on like consumer market research, and so I would say less of that. But but definitely some.
How about competitive landscape analysis?
Yes, some of that.
How about, do you have the skill of business acumen? Do you know how businesses work and make money?
Sure, I've never identified that for myself, but I guess
Yeah,
I've
okay.
been in the I've been in the workforce a long time. So I'd say.
Yeah. And the context here is, are you, you're understanding why the organization needs that market or that competitive
Mhm,
intelligence because of
mhm.
how they're going to use it and apply it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You're able to communicate and synthesize,
Mhm.
collaborate. You're ethical probably in
Yep.
how
Yep.
you're doing things.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what I just did is I put in a question in ChatGPT, and I said, I want a job in competitive intelligence. What are the competencies need? I'm an information professional. Okay.
Cool.
And so this is what it told me the competencies are. And the reason why I did this, and Mary, I can send this to you afterwards because I have your email. The reason I did this is because when we get into a place where we're switching industries or potentially switching industries, but you have a functional role that is actually transferable, right? So what you functionally do could transfer into any industry. And sometimes hiring people have a narrow mind to that, and might put in there, but it may not be true, that they need someone who's been in this industry before.
Mhm. Mhm.
It actually could be more optional than we think it is,
Mhm.
because functionally, what you do could be dropped into any environment, right? So I would design your resumes from the competency standpoint of why you're really great at this functional job. And, any of the industries you've worked um, in the background, I think you can mention in your resume the ones you're interested in. And you might say, let's say you're looking, what's an example of, I'm just going to guess you probably applied for a role at a software as a service company. Is that true?
Yep. There.
Okay.
Let's see. I have to think. I've looked at so many now, and now I have to remember which ones did I actually hit apply on, and which ones did I not. But
Yeah.
sure, go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine your role would be very needed in a software company that is selling their software as a service to other companies,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So a B2B company, because it's very competitive. They need the intelligence, they need the market information, which is what you're great at. It's not like consumer information, it's market information, competitive
Mhm.
intelligence. So, what you would talk about is you could even name in like your opening paragraph, my functional role works works well in SaaS companies, tech companies, regulated industries. You can just say all that stuff in there, even if you haven't worked there in the past, but just acknowledge that these are functional, or these are places where you functionally can do that work. Now,
Excellent.
the second thing I would say to you, Mary, and this is for everybody, again, and just like what we just did for Mary a moment ago, everyone can do that same thing. So if you're looking to shift, that's a way to move your materials forward and change the conversation around your functional role within an industry. The second thing, Mary, we always say is we need an and equation. So if you're applying online, um, first of all, we recommend platform monogamy. And by that, I mean like stick to Indeed, stick to LinkedIn. Don't do both because it's overwhelming. There's enough opportunity out there, even in the competitive marketplace, that being monogamous on the platform will keep your life a little more calm. So, Mary, are you applying through LinkedIn or Indeed, or what are you using right now?
I was using both,
Okay.
anything and
Yeah.
everything.
Okay.
Just in
Yeah.
case, sometimes things hit one before the other. They're usually pretty close, but yeah, that I was just trying to cover my bases.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And that the energy of that is like frantic, I'm sure. Like, and then two sorts of notifications are coming up all the time in your phone. Right. And that can be overwhelming after a minute or a day.
Yeah.
Where you're like trying to go to bed at night and you get a notification on your phone and then all of a sudden you're like, ah. I'm just guessing. So what we recommend is not using the quick apply feature. It's there, but 150 other people are going to use the quick apply feature. You are a smart applicant. What we want you to do, Mary, is not only apply, but apply through the company's own website rather than through LinkedIn. Okay. And then second, we need you to reach out to a few people and let them know you applied at the company. So this is the place where you might have to pull on your big boy pants, as some people say, your big girl pants, because people get a little nervous about reaching out to people they don't know on LinkedIn, for example. And, if you can find a few people who you think might work in that area of the business, at that company, or maybe they are HR people or talent acquisition people at that company, reach out to them on LinkedIn, share your resume with them, and let them know that you applied to that role. Okay. And that you're looking forward to talking to them about it. We recommend reaching out to at least 3 people at the company because it can sometimes happen that some people aren't on LinkedIn very often, and it'll be more effective if you reach out to 3. You have a higher chance of actually getting in touch with someone who's active on LinkedIn.
Got it. Thanks.
How does that feel to you?
Very much. I mean, it's kind of the process that I have been following. It is hard to find. Sometimes you're just not connected to absolutely anybody at the company. And so, I mean, I can usually get pretty good at finding who's the likely hiring manager or finding someone at least that posted about the job. And a couple times I've tried to go, just go that route, just to send them a message and say, are you still interviewing new candidates for this? Because sometimes the job has been out there for a while. But not too much success with that yet, but definitely worth noting that, to keep that going and try to even double down on it a little bit.
Yeah, keep it going. And second degrees, LinkedIn did a study a few years ago and found that it's our second degree connections that actually are more helpful at creating introductions. So, for example, if you're looking at a job at, gosh, let me think, Excel Energy, let's just say the energy company, right? And you see that Lourdes or I have a connection at Excel Energy, ask us if we'll introduce you to the person at Excel. And that's a great way to make a very, there's like psychological trust that we borrow in there when we get an introduction. So don't be afraid to ask for an introduction and then reach out to that person separately. So keep doing it. Sounds like you're doing it. Keep doing it. There's not a fear factor here because what you're doing is you're sharing facts and they need you. They need someone, and it may as well be you. I see that. Thank you, Mary. I see that Yelena had a question or a statement here about contacting the person and stating your case. Yes, and I think there's a way to do this in a manner that where we're not being defensive and we don't need to prove anything because we are the proof. So what I would do is take what you're talking about there, Yelena, and reposition it in a manner that says, hey, I saw that there's an opportunity here. I'm shifting into a new industry. Here are the kinds of problems I've solved in the past. Here are the kinds of impacts I've made. And here's the kind of help I provided. Okay, so kinds of problems I've solved, kinds of impacts I've made, the kinds of help I provide. And so when we do that, again, we're sharing a fact basis and not any kind of defense or proving energy. We don't want to kind of like come into the situation like in fighting mode. I'm guessing you don't mean that in this question, but sometimes people feel that way. And so that's why I'm bringing that up right now. Absolutely reach out and share a message of how you can bring that value by sharing with them the fact basis. Okay. So that's going to be really critical for you.
Michelle had a question.
Yeah.
She was asking, what should the top third to half of a resume feature? It seems like a professional summary may not be as important as leading with the results.
Very, very good question, Michelle. I love this. Okay. So what we always do, I see this here. Thank you so much, Michelle. What we always do is we take a hybrid approach to the resumes that we write. And we do this for all the resumes we write because we do need that above the fold. So if you think of a newspaper comes folded in half. And all of the energy in the editing room a lot of the time goes to what are we putting on that top half of the paper before it's folded, right? And so this question is perfect. So what we want to do is have your experience, get that into your resume first, right? And then from there, a list of your competencies and where you've demonstrated those competencies. So put those above your experience, okay? And then above there is going to be a brief paragraph about the problems you solve, the kinds of impacts you make, and the kind of help you provide that feature you specifically toward the role that you're applying for. So the top half, top third should be an opening paragraph that positions you strongly for that next position, probably no more than 5 or 6 lines in length. And then you're going to have your top competencies and results. And you can have anywhere between 5 and 7 competency names with the results next to them. And then the experience from there. And then on the bottom, education. So this is kind of like a hybrid version of a resume where we're not just going like, it's not your grandfather's or your father's version of just historical information. We're really positioning the top half to be what they need to know about you to bring you in for an interview. And everything below there just validates it and backs it up. Yeah. Candace, Lourdes, are you bringing up Candace's question?
Yep, that was going to be the
Okay.
next one.
Awesome.
Yes.
Hi, Candace. Good to see you. Yeah. Okay. So
Hello.
Candace is saying, I see. How are you? Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, my doggy's coming in. Get out of here. It's too cute. Sorry about that, Candace.
No worries.
So you see jobs that you've applied for before, they get reposted, and you see many hundreds of people have applied. Should you still apply? Tell me a little bit more. Tell me what's happening. Catch me up.
So, you see a job, I applied, and all of a sudden it'll say, oh, reposted, and this could have been weeks ago. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it was reposted less than 24 hours. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I didn't even get the oh, so sorry email. So it's like, what's going on when that happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so could be a number of different things going on, from the HR team not being their stuff together to the hiring manager not liking what they're seeing to them maybe redeciding that they just need to get a wider net of candidates, right? So what in this case, and this can happen, what you want to do is apply through the company's website. So have you done that, Candace?
Yes, I like what you said. I try to avoid just applying like easy apply through LinkedIn or whatever. I try to always go to the company site. So when I click apply, I usually just copy, that URL or
Yeah.
from the company site.
Perfect. That's great. Okay. And then the next step to do is going to be to reach out to some people at the organization because you want to get your resume in front of a human being. Okay. And I'll tell you this, in my experience, 1 out of 100 people will take this extra step. I don't care if 500 people have applied to a job that you can see on LinkedIn. There's only going to be 5 people that take the step of reaching out to people at the company. I promise you, fewer
And
than
I
five
have been
people.
doing that more, like go look at
Mhm.
the people in the company, try to find, like the talent acquisition person, or if it was reposted, I try to keep, going backwards to see maybe who was that original poster. So I have been doing a lot more following of like talent acquisition folks because oftentimes they'll, hey, if you know anyone, not to say it's not posted on LinkedIn, but at least it gives me a human, like you said, to, hey, I have
Mhm.
questions. And I will do a cold email. I'm like, we don't know each other. What do I have to lose?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And how's that been going for you? Have you gotten any responses on that?
Slowly started. Some people, they don't respond, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so this morning, saw a posting for a company, did that, and then that was going to be my next step, just to reach out to a couple of their TAs. Like someone has to own, this
Mhm.
requisition. What do I have to lose? So I've gotten more
Yeah.
confident in doing that. Before I was like, I feel, weird. I was under the
Yeah.
impression that, oh my gosh, everybody's probably reaching out to them. And sometimes it start off with the person maybe posting the job, but sometimes it's just some person from the company is, they
Mhm.
could be in a totally different department. I'm like, wait a minute, this person is in legal.
Mhm.
They,
Mhm.
that's not my, field or anything like that. So I've just gotten a little bit more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Keep doing it. And the other thing is, people might reply to you a week later or 2 weeks later. Sometimes I have people that reach back out like 3 months later. So keep doing it. And you're going to find the right angle. And I would say the one other thing to add to that, Candace, so you're doing the right things. You're applying through the company's page. You're reaching out to a few people. You're trying to find that talent acquisition person or the hiring manager or someone in the department and, send them a note on LinkedIn, send them an email if you can figure out the email configuration for their
Mhm.
company, right? And I would say the next thing to do is see if you can get an introduction. So, for example, do you mind sharing like the name of a company you've applied at?
I think it was called Scott's Motors. Yeah,
Scott's
that was me.
Motors?
Hmm.
Okay. If anyone knows anyone at Scott's Motors, please connect Candace. Okay. But what I want you to do is look for some second degree connections and see if you can get an
Okay.
intro in. And you want an intro into a senior person.
Okay.
Okay. So someone who has decision-making power. So it wouldn't be like an individual contributor or a manager. They
Mhm.
would be helpful to make a recommendation. But it's going to be more powerful if you get to the
Mhm.
head of IT or the senior director or SVP of finance or something like that, because they're going to have
Okay.
decision-making power. Mhm. And
Okay.
so if you see like, oh, I see Kate knows the CEO of, Scott's Motors. Kate, can you introduce me to the CEO? Hell yes, I'm going to introduce you, Candace. So, and ask some more people to make those introductions because you're borrowing the psychological safety, you're borrowing the trust of the introduction as well as
Right.
just, the cold outreach too. So look for those
Thank you.
points of commonality. Yeah, yeah. Keep going, girl. All right, we are over time here. We've covered a lot today. What I want you to do, if you leave from here today, is define your one goal, that one job, that one area you're looking for the next 12 weeks. So stop the spray and pray. Figure, just do one thing, okay? One thing. Um, Create that single source of truth document so you can have everything together, all the facts about your badass self, okay, in one place. And then write down what you want to be known for and look for those roles where you can do those things where you're going to have fun and be really seen and valued for your contributions, your capabilities. All right. We're going to have another call in a couple weeks talking about your 401ks. So when you leave a company, a lot of people leave their 401ks behind. And you don't have to do that. You can own that 401k. I think it's an interesting market to talk about. We're in an interesting place in the markets right now to talk about your 401k, but don't leave your 401k out there in someone else's hands. And we'll be talking about that the next time we meet, when we meet with Katie Jacobson. Lourdes, thanks for being here. Did you have fun, Lourdes?
Yeah, after after being put on the spot, it was much better.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. And if you've got questions, follow up with Lourdes or I on LinkedIn, and we'll send out a recording to this. And tell your friends, bring a +1 next time. We want to help as many people as possible. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.